Well, hello to all you Three Circles passengers and members out there. And hello to all you shooters and reloaders. It's Fortune Cookie 45 LC coming from the Hot Lead Zone Express. And what I have here is a video we're going to make, and that is that shooting and reloading is a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week activity. And so I've got a project here making another 12-gauge reloading tray. This one with 55 rounds, not 50, 55. So it's a mega tray. Same Burgundy cutting board material, but instead of the base being a 2x12, I'm using one of my old boards that I used to use to store my cast bullets. So I used to put the cast bullets base down in rows all the way across this board, and then put another board on top, and then put another row of bullets and another board on top. That's how I stored my cast bullets. Well, this resulted in getting the boards all full of these little rings of cast bullet lube. And that's what made a big mess here on this board. Well, I took one of these boards and just sanded the daylights out of it to get rid of all that bullet lube, and then sanded the other side smooth, and that got rid of a lot of the bulges and the warping and the twisting that these boards have. So it made a nice base here and got the glue up right here, and we're going to go ahead and screw that together also. By the time we do all that, these boards will be flat. So I went ahead and used my jigsaw to make the cuts on this thin wood. Jigsaw is the best for cutting that thin wood. You don't need to see that because you've all used jigsaws before. So you see we've securely clamped every corner. And then I've got a couple of these hand spring clamps on there. Plus we got this heavy H-press sitting on top of that. And this glue's been drying now for about 2 hours. We'll take it apart. Wow, I'll show you what we got here so far. And that is the 55 holes are all drilled. The holes are all sanded on the inside, so they're all nice and smooth. And then the top surface has been sanded heavily. Now this time, for this particular board, I went ahead and sanded all the sides too. Now there's the glue up. Do you see how the board and the reloading tray are nicely joined with the glue? That joint's pretty good. I don't know where this little bit of oil came from, but we'll either have to wipe that out or sand it out or something of that nature, but we'll be able to do that. But that really flattened out nicely. And probably the glue is so good we don't even need to put screws in, but I'll do that anyway. So there are the screws, 4 of them. Now I couldn't use my regular length 1 1/4 inch screws because they'll go through the other side. So I had to go to my little accessory screw collection to find 4 short screws that were like 3/4 inch. And then I set the DeWalt countersink drill to go ahead and give me countersunk holes, and went ahead and put those screws in. So now we've got glue and screw placement of the base. And this is nice and securely joined, and you see how nice that is. Now I had to leave enough room to put the little screws for the rubber bumpers that I'm going to be putting on here. So when they're installed, they'll be right next to these other screws, because they have to go into the little areas where there's enough room in the wood to accommodate that. But that project's going on very well. So Fortune Cookie, what do you mean that it's a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week activity in shooting and reloading? Well, let me give you an idea what I mean by that. I was at the restaurant the other day doing pickup, right? So we're going to pick up enough food to feed an entire office because we're having a little office party. So went to the Chinese restaurant to pick up some food, and while I was there, I noticed that they had this can of crayons, because normally in the times before the epidemic or pandemic, that the kids would get crayons to draw while they're waiting for the food, right, to be served at the tables. Well, I saw this can. I know that can's full of crayons. So I asked the restaurant, you know what? These crayons are real old. Why don't you let me take them off your hands? And because I had a pretty big order, and we kind of buy there regularly, they're more amenable to being cooperative. So the manager there just said, go ahead and take the crayons. So look at all these crayons. Now, what do you suppose I'm going to do with these crayons? And that is, yep, you guessed it. Next time I melt bullet lube, I'm going to be putting in some colors, like green or red, so that I'll have some nice colorful bullet lube to put into my cast bullets. So this is a score. I like this. Costs nothing, but it's part of the cost of doing business, right? For, look at that. Orange. Green. Nice green. Anyway, we'll look forward to that. By the way, let me show you something here. This is from Poland. And what it is a house for gnomes. But the wife comes up to me today and says, I need your help. Well, you know what? When the wife comes up to you and says that she needs your help, you got to pay attention and accommodate and help the best you can. So she said that this house for the gnomes, the top of the house no longer fit the base, because this was taken up to Bainbridge, and somehow with all the humidity changes, the wood swelled up so it wouldn't come together. In fact, it looked like this was made for a different base, because it wasn't even close to coming together. It was like this, and wouldn't join. So the idea was, well, I need to make this fit again. But the wife says that she didn't mind if it didn't fit that well, as long as it went down and fit again. Well, you know, when someone has a job for you, they don't want a half job. They want a good job, even though they might say they don't need a good job. So first and foremost is cause no damage. So you don't want to have the paint all damaged by your repair. You don't want to have the chimney snapped off. You don't want to have a lot of scratches. You don't want this rim to be damaged so that the wood here that's kind of thin is weakened. So the correction needs to be made on the inside, the upper rim, where there's a lot more stock. And the inside needs to be done properly and nicely. So if this is too tight and wouldn't go on, I sure don't want to thin this, because it's not that thick to begin with. We got more stock on the inside of the upper, so let's do the correction here. So let's do the correction here, where there's much more stock to work with. So the key is this. I just got a hold of my all-trade rotary tool. Now, you know, these rotary tools, when they're from companies like Milwaukee and DeWalt and Makita, cost somewhere around $200 for one of these. Now, of course, Dremel makes just like this, is a rotary tool, Dremel. And we all know about Dremels. But I got this all-trade for like $30 for this whole kit. It comes with all these tips and the little sandpaper little cylinders and the grinding tips, and it even comes with polishing compound. It has a lot of steel tips that can be used for any number of jobs. You can go ahead and install these separating discs, which turns this tool into a little cutoff tool. So this device actually runs very well, runs very smooth, and it even has a variable speed, so you can go slow speed, medium, and fast speed. I figured that this can do the job very nicely. So using just the sandpaper cylinder, the 60 grit, I went in like this and very carefully reduced the rim and created a little shoulder down there. I already figured out that I want to take off a certain thickness just by eyeball and make that a uniform removal. And I knew how far down I wanted to go because I know how tall this little flange is. So I went ahead and made the correction a little deeper than that, all the way around, create a little shoulder. Then I used the sandpaper disc to smooth off the shoulder, and then used sandpaper squares in here to really finish the job so that you can't even tell that I did anything in there. Because this is the kind of job that people want. They don't want you to scratch the whole inside of it up and have it all look bad because some friends might be by to look at it at the Gnomes House. So we got a nice correction here. So you see, it goes all the way on, all the way around. It has just a little bit of grab, but not bad. And now the gnomes have their house back in perfect condition, and the wife is happy. And when the wife is happy, she lets you buy more reloading stuff and more tools too. And of course, here are the gnomes in their little homes, and here comes the leader, right? That's Sergeant Saunders. He comes out, and they're all diving into their foxholes. And they got their AR-15s, and they're getting ready to defend their position. That one dove in head first. Now this is all a spin-off of what my dad used to always teach me, and that is always give the customer the highest value you can, because that's the way you get a customer for life. So I just had the Gnomes House delivered to the missus with my compliments. Now speaking of tools, oh, by the way, over here, another job that I just did for myself, and that is I made my own bench dogs. And you know what bench dogs are. You see that? Now you can brace your workpieces against this and do sanding, or if you want to clamp it, you can clamp it to that. And these dogs cost nothing to make, and they will serve very well because those wooden dowels take a lot of punishment. But speaking of tools, garage sale. The next door neighbor was doing a garage sale, so I moseyed over there, and by golly, there was stuff that I could use. And it was practically being given away for a song. Anyway, let me show you what I got here. Turns out that my next door neighbor has a lot of tools. And he collected these tools like 50 years ago, a lot of them. So the thing about old tools is that they're still good. Plus, most of them, almost all of them, are made in the USA. See this? So all these clamps here, made in USA. See that? And this one says Pony. Now we know about Pony. They're a good company. Make a lot of good stuff for us today. This one I can't make out who makes it, but you can bet it's US made. And then this one says Cincinnati Machine or something. It says Cincinnati Tool Company. So you can bet that's made in the USA because I think Cincinnati's in the United States. And of course, look at this. This is a well-experienced little hammer nail puller, because you can see the hammer's been peened over. And this one also says made in the USA right there. Made in USA. See? All of the neighbor's stuff is made in the USA. And this, look at this. This is a nail puller bar. I mean, you go to Home Depot or Lowe's and you gotta pay like $25 for just this. So then I got a nice square. Of course, it had rust on it. I had to work a little bit to get the rust off. But the level's fine, and this, I just checked this. This is 90 degrees. This is 45. So this is still good. Then look at this. These are drywall workers or putty knives, and they're good steel that goes all the way through the tangs, go all the way through the handles. And it says Stanley on them. I mean, these are not your flexible that you see today. These are heavy duty. And this one still has an edge on it. So whether you're doing drywall or whether you're doing some putty work, this is ready to go. And they're in great condition. Then, of course, I got a couple of these hammer handles. They're hardwood. And I figure I can use these and knock open my bullet molds. And if the bullet mold is being stubborn, then I'll use the bigger one. And if it's still being stubborn, then I break out the hammer of Thor. Now this, of course, is a hardwood mallet that was made by hand, I'm sure. But it's been well used, it's been beat up, and the handle's still good, it's still solid, and by golly, I can really clobber a bullet mold with one of these things. Don't you believe that? You don't clobber bullet molds. But you can sure knock the sprue handle, the sprue plate loose with this thing, in case this one doesn't do it, or that one doesn't do it. And then I got this thing. Now this thing is really cool. I'm looking at this thing, and it says made in USA here too, very faint. So this thing's been well used. You see, it's gone through it's gone through some battling because of the handle here, but it's still a smooth handle. It's just that it's well used. But this is obviously forged. And I had to take off some rust on this, but it was easily done. Just get some mineral oil. Thanks to Dave Thorzak's for, by the way, Dave Thorzak's, the hammer of Thor. Thorzak's. This is Dave Thorzak's right here. Anyway, this tool is forged and it's been honed. It's got a hollow here. Comes to a point. So I figure I can use this tool to spot my drill holes. But otherwise, this edge can be made to be very sharp. My next door neighbor says this thing was used to remove grease from machinery. So you take it and you scrape the grease off. But it's made in the USA. And I figure I've got a tool for the ages here. Actually, I know what this tool is used for from Star Trek, the episode about the city in the clouds. This is the tool that the troglodytes used to mine the xenite. Because you see, you stick this into the xenite and start loosening the xenite up, and then that groove there lets the gas from the xenite run out. Then you loosen up the xenite, you gather it up and give it to the Starship Enterprise. That's what this tool is. You can't fool me. And here's the beauty. All of this, the hammer of Thor, the two wrecking bars, the steel hammer, the two putty knives, the 5 clamps, the square, all of this. Oh, and also a little screwdriver. I didn't tell you about that. But this screwdriver was just thrown into the deal. It was just sitting there, and I said, how much you want for a screwdriver? Well, I got all this other stuff, so my neighbor said, it's on the house. Well, it's got a nice tip on it. I intend to grind it nice and square on both sides and have it fit my Ruger single action stock screws perfectly. So this will be a screwdriver that's going to be custom made to fit my Ruger single actions, and also that same screw will be useful for my Ruger Super Blackhawk 44 Magnum for that. Now that happens to be a 3-hole, and there's an extra screw in the bottom of the receiver, and this screwdriver will be perfect to tighten that up. So it'll be a designated screwdriver for my Rugers. And the good news, all this came to $20. So we can really do well for our shooting and reloading by going to garage sales. $20 for all of this, and there's no tax. And this stuff, even though some of it's 50 years old, it's good as the day it was made. It's fantastic. No tax. By the way, we should keep that quiet because I'm sure they're liable to start registering garage sales, and like California is so desperate for money, they're going to register garage sales and have certification and licensing for garage sales, and then the tax will have to be reported in triplicate and all of this kind of thing, all for garage sales. And you got to wear a mask and got to keep 6 feet apart and all that kind of thing. It's gonna be horrible. Let's keep that quiet, okay? And by the way, now we're applying the first of probably 3 or 4 coats of polyurethane. And our DeWalt folding mobile workbench works real good for doing painting. But here we go. So you get the idea. We'll go ahead and put the polyurethane on there, very tough coating for our reloading tray. So this is crazy. Just had 2 of the neighborhood kids run up from the garage sale next door, and they're trying to return a mask to me, but it wasn't my mask. But I didn't have the camera running then, but then again, you don't need to see that. This is Fortune Cookie 45 LC from the hot lead zone. We'll see you next video. Bye for now.